You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Thank you so much for joining me here today on this wellness and weight loss edition of the Cabral Concept. Excited to talk about today's show topic, and the reason is this. It's almost never, if at all, spoken about why women, and this goes for men with lower testosterone, but we're going to focus on why a lot of the time women are dealing with symptoms of lower estrogen, lower progesterone, and imbalanced hormones that can lead to a host of symptoms that's almost, again, never associated with the imbalance that goes along with this. This has to do with infertility. There's literally what I would call an epidemic of infertility, especially in the Western-based world, and no one's talking about the true underlying reasons of why. Hot flashes and night sweats, and this goes before menopause, insomnia-based issues, heart palpitation, women gaining weight without, even trying, meaning they're not overeating, they're not under-exercising, loss of overall confidence and self-esteem, more anxiety, more mood swings, breast tenderness, they get headaches and migraines, skin rashes, lowered libido, difficulty with concentration, so they're reaching towards medications or more caffeine, fatigue, overall kind of like feeling like blah, brain fog, fibromyalgia or joint pain, vaginal-based dryness or recurring urinary tract infections, and lower mood and depression. These are just some of the symptoms from imbalanced estrogen and progesterone levels. Now, again, in the past, we've spoken about many times of why women have a tendency to go essentially estrogen dominant. And I do hope that you go to stephencabral.com/podcast. and literally just type in estrogen in quotation or type in estrogen dominance in quotation marks. And you will find my previous podcasts that explain to you why this is the case. But today, what I want to do is I want to talk about from another angle, an angle that, again, is almost never, if ever, spoken about at all. And that is why, or I should say, the reason is that because of certain things going on in the environment all around us, women are not always just low in progesterone. They're also low in estrogen as well. So one of the things that we see over and over on our lab testing that we do, and again, they're not our labs. I will link up the lab that you can do right at home in the show notes today. And again, like I said, we don't own any of these labs. What we do is we recommend the best lab out there. There's a lot of people using a newer lab that just came out, let's say about 3 or 4 or so years ago, and it's all urine-based. It's not the best one to do. I just want to throw that out there to you. I'm not going to name names of which lab it is. It's a urine-based lab for hormones. It is not the best one to do. I'll tell you why. I spent my own money, and I did a blood work test. This is not for myself, but for clients. Blood work, saliva, and urine for hormones. Okay, the blood work and saliva came back identical, near identical, same day, same time. The urine did not. The urine does not hold up in the same way. I just really urge you, because there's so many women doing this urine-based test. They're doing it at home. It's great, but here's the issue. It's not showing the dysfunction that we're looking for at a tissue-based level. It's showing the end term, the end use of these hormones that are not being used. So they look normal on these urine-based tests, but the problem is women have all the symptoms. They're anything but normal. And if they ran their blood work or if they ran the saliva test, which is even easier and I believe as accurate, if not more accurate than any of the lab tests, they would get a better result. But the lab test, again, is neither here nor there. You may decide to do it. You may not. You may just listen to all the symptoms I just read and say, yes, I have those. I'm experiencing these things on a daily or at least a monthly basis, and I want to take care of that. Well, here's one of the issues, and I'm going to explain to you exactly how this happens. In my practice, from running this lab, we see many, many women with low progesterone. They do have estrogen dominance, okay? They're running what's called a thyroid adrenal hormone test, and they are seeing that they're lower in progesterone. But here's the issue. They're also low on estrogen, or they're just normal on estrogen, but they still have what's called estrogen dominance. And the reason is that the ratio is off. So their progesterone is so low that even a low or normal estrogen, or typically it's just called low normal estrogen, looks high. And they experience, again, a lot of the symptoms of the bloating, the water retention, maybe some acne around the chin, the lower mood or depression. Any of these issues can come about whenever there's estrogen dominance. And that's because progesterone goes so low because of something called the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, or the stress axis that we call it. When stress goes up, what happens is progesterone has a tendency to go down. Well, I've explained part of that in the past, and so I do hope that you'll, again, tune into previous shows of how that works. What I would like to do today is explain to you how both estrogen and progesterone can decrease in women, causing all of the symptoms. I'll name them one more time, but all of the symptoms of, especially, again, we work with so many women with infertility. They're going through IVF-based treatments, or they're going through all sorts of different treatments, or they're getting all this different type of advice. And I'm not against any of it. I'm honestly not, because my goal is to help women out there. I mean, that is the truth. Now, again, all the things that you're listening to today, if you're a male, this affects testosterone as well, all right? This lowers testosterone, the exact axis that I'm about to share with you today, okay? But we obviously see it so prevalent in our society for women. And so, again, men, we have to teach, we have to pass this information on and share it, because infertility is an enormous issue that many, many women are dealing with right now, and it can be fixed. It honestly can be, and it can be done naturally. But what about all the other things, such as the hot flashes, or the flushing, or the night sweats, or the difficulty sleeping, or the heart palpitations, or the weight gain, the bloating, the water retention, the cellulite, the skin rashes, the lower libido, lower self-confidence, the anxiety, the low mood, the depression, the mood swings, breast tenderness, vaginal dryness, fatigue, or just kind of inflammation all over, the brain fog. All of these things are symptoms of lower estrogen or lower progesterone, or both. So how does this happen? Well, here's how it happens. And again, your body is not messing up. Even as doctors, if you're a doctor listening to this, we need to stop believing that the body is messing up. The body is not messing up. It's not. We really have to understand that. Is because if we just say, oh, it's just genetic, oh, the body's messing up, it's not. It's just not. If we say that, it's because you don't understand the underlying mechanisms. The body's trying to save you or the life that you might be trying to bring into this world. Keep in mind, if your body is not the best position possible because of what I'm going to name, your body will not let you get pregnant. It's not supposed to. And here's why. And again, I know that it seems unfair, but because it believes the environment that you're in right now is not conducive to bringing another life into it. It's smart. It's pre-programmed. It's saying now is not the right time. Bring me to a safer environment. Then I will allow you to bring another child, another life into this world. It just makes total sense. I mean, it makes complete sense. But we have to look at it not from a cold, sterile-based, conventional medicine mindset. We need to look at it as like, oh, it's low? Okay, well, let's just pump more into the body. Or it's too high? Okay, let's just suppress it. No, let's figure out why that is, because we have this amazing mechanism in our brain that will tell your body exactly how much hormone to secrete. It tells you that based on positive and negative feedback loops. Well, you might just say, again, in conventional medicine, well, the feedback loop is broken. Okay, it's not broken, but there's something that's causing it to function or fire that way. So let's figure out why. And again, what I'm going to talk about today is complex, that it's not even well understood when you're going through medical school or you're going through schooling in general. However, I just believe that if you want to specialize in endocrinology or hormones, that this is something that you just have to master. I'm going to talk about it today from an approachable perspective that I believe anyone can understand. Not only that you can go about fixing it, that you can go about righting the ship and getting that body back into balance. All right, so let's talk about it today. If you live in a world that has a lot of exotoxins, it has a lot of exogenous based, that means from without toxins in the world, that's going to affect the body, okay? It's going to affect it in two ways. It's going to affect it in terms of inflammation, and that inflammation can lead to higher levels of cortisol. But also, those toxins, again, this is never talked about. I'll talk about this on another show. Those toxins affect your genes. They affect single nucleotide polymorphisms, the SNPs, that actually then decrease your body's ability to then buffer stress. So it's in a roundabout kind of way. People don't give toxins the due because they actually cause a lot of these MTHFR, COMT, SOD-based gene issues. So people saying, I have a COMT, I have a SOD, I have a MTHFR, I have all these different types of issues. And I might say all that's true, but what's affecting them, right? Because that is what truly matters. So when we look at that, we have to look at, okay, what are we being exposed to our environment? Heavy metals, plastics, all these different synthesizers, flame retardants that can actually turn on and off genes. So one of the things that's important to me is looking specifically at what are all the toxins that are affecting the human body. And that's what I want to get into right now. All right, so let's go over those toxins right now. And essentially what we're talking about in the toxins that can affect the hormones, the toxins that can affect the genetic predisposition are environmental-based toxins such as pesticides, plastics, heavy metals such as aluminum, anything that can exacerbate inflammation, as well as anything that will also cause a disturbance in the MTHFR-based gene, the methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase gene, as well as the detoxification pathways in the liver. A lot of people underestimate having a congested liver or a liver that's overworked with not being able to balance hormones. And that's because your body will actually not be able to properly eliminate and manufacture as well as stay balanced in terms of hormones if it's working constantly, meaning around the clock on dealing with all of these exogenous toxins that come from the environment. So really important that we do look at the foods that we're eating, that we're not drinking tap water, that we're doing things to eliminate our toxic exposure on a daily basis. The other part that we're looking at that's going to throw off how the brain signals to produce this hormone, and I will go all through that in just a moment, is actually looking at overall psychological-based stress. We call it psychogenic stress. And what psychogenic stress means, anything that we're taking in that we see as a stressor from the outside, or, internally as well. But what we're looking at is this. Something in our life, okay, it might be a relationship, might be kids, might be our parents, might be our friends, might be work, might be our outlook on our body at the time, anything that's a stressor to us. Again, keep in mind, I talk about this quite a bit on Mindset and Motivation Mondays, and that's why they're not just about motivation, they're about healing. Because if you see a stressor, which is essentially something that you believe is outside of your control, life is going to feel overwhelming. You're going to start to feel anxious because you believe that there are forces outside of you that do not allow you to be fully in control of your life. Well, when that happens, you are automatically going to ramp up your survival-based hormones, your stress-based hormones. We'll get to those in a minute, but if you've been tuning in to previous Cabral concepts, you'll see that we've spoken about before what happens when norepinephrine and adrenaline and cortisol get going. And we'll give an overview on those as well. So we have stress, we have the environmental toxins, we also have something called over expenditure of energy. So what does that mean? Well, it's looked at it from two ways. So one is you could be dieting on a low-carb diet or hypocaloric, so low on calories overall. What that tells your body and your brain is this, is like, okay, we can deal with this. We're not getting enough calories, but we're going to start to lower and slow metabolic function because that's what happens. Because your body, again, it's not messing up. It's saying, okay, we need to survive on less calories. That's the bottom line. So if you put less calories in, fine. I'm going to slow metabolic rate so that you can't lose any more weight, right? And it will start to just teeter, right? You'll be able to lose it, and then you'll start to plateau. And then maybe you go lower, you'll lose a little bit more, and then you'll start to plateau. Not the best way to lose weight in the long run. Fine in the short term, certainly not in the long term. And I would even say, like, you have to be careful with that in the short term, because short term for people is, okay, I'm going to do it for a week or two, but I'm going to do it every couple of weeks. That is not really a short-term based thing. That's just, you're kind of moving through it far too quickly. But again, that's a show for another day. So we're looking at dropping your calories too low or ramping up your output in terms of stress. So that means two things. One, your workouts could be too hard, especially if you're on a low-carb or low-calorie diet. If your workouts are exceeding your body's intake in terms of nutrients, both macro and micro, again, it will start to lower your metabolism, And at the same time, it will start to lower metabolic-based hormones and sex hormones. That means it will lower thyroid, especially in women, and it will lower progesterone first and estrogen second. At the same time, we can actually see a ramping up of testosterone in the short term. What does that do? Well, along with increased insulin, that's why I do hope that you go back. All of this will begin to make more sense as you listen to previous shows. One of the ones is episode 957. If you haven't listened to episode 957 on how cortisol affects blood sugar, which affects inflammation, which affects the immune system, do check that out. Because what happens is this. If we're talking about PCOS in women, which is something we see all the time, and it can be fixed, absolutely, you can rebalance that. But if you look at how stress and stressors in any way ramps up that sympathetic nervous system, you'll understand why testosterone in the short term can increase. Now, it can increase along with insulin because you're under greater stress, which means your body's going to manufacture its own glucose if it needs to. Then you'll understand that higher insulin, higher testosterone, and you'll see the lower progesterone can be just a recipe for disaster, ending up with PCOS-based symptoms. And even if you're not diagnosed with PCOS, you can still have the symptoms of PCOS by having the above normal, if it's within normal range testosterone, and the above normal insulin levels leading from a short-term spike in blood sugar. Again, your hemoglobin A1C levels might not even show up on blood work as being out of balance because it looks at an over day 90 to 120 day data point. So if you haven't been dealing with it for a full 3 to 4 months, it might not even show up on blood work yet, which is why you have to go by the overall story of the person. It's one thing that conventional medicine is severely lacking, is doing a full intake, 30 minutes to an hour, of saying, what's going on with this person? What's going on in their life now? What's been going on for the past 5 years, 10 years, or even since childhood? As natural health practitioners, we get to do that. Our first consultation should be no real advice at all. It should be getting to know the person, then, if possible, send it out for labs. If not, then making an assessment of what should be done based on symptoms. That's okay as well. I know not everyone's going to be able to run lab tests, and that's totally fine. We can also do natural healing-based protocols based on a person's story, based on really a lot of data points besides the actual lab work that will allow us to help that individual to rebalance their body. Okay, so we have the psychogenic stress, we have the potentially low calorie, potentially too much exercise, or it could be, honestly, calories are okay, exercise is okay, but you're not getting enough sleep, or the sleep is not adequate enough to keep up with the stress in your life. And so what happens then is that your body is then put at a deficit in terms of the parasympathetic, the rest, the rejuvenation, right? So really, really important. And the last piece to that would also be in terms of digestion. If your digestion is always becoming inflamed every time you eat because of candida, because of SIBO, because of parasites, because of H. pylori, any one of those things, those are the big four, any one of those reasons, well, then every time you eat, you're going to cause your body some type of discomfort, some type of inflammation, and some type of immune-based response because your body is seeing those proteins seep through the gut wall, which they shouldn't, and they're going after them. Again, is the body messing up? No, it's not. It's absolutely not. Is your body messing up if you have IBS? No. How about Crohn's? No. How about colitis? No. None of those things. There's an inflammation-based process going on because something's imbalanced in the gut. So rather than just medicate it, mask the symptoms, we should be asking why and going about rebalancing the body. Because everybody can rebalance their body. Now, is it straightforward and will it happen in a week? Just like if you took medication, it would mask the symptoms in a week? No, but that's not the goal. We like symptoms because symptoms in the long run let us know if we're on the right track, if we're doing our job, if the body is rebalancing itself. So it's so vitally important. Again, don't mask the symptoms, figure out what's going on. So now we have all these different things that it could be, right? Even with the digestive issues, it can simply be an absorption-based issue, right? So now you're not absorbing all of the nutrients that you need, the micronutrients, so your body's asking for more food, or it's at a deficit of B vitamins and calcium, magnesium, and zinc, which is extremely common if someone's not producing enough stomach acid, or if they're on Prilosec, or any proton pump inhibitor, H2 blocker, any one of those things. Okay, so let's look at it this way. We have all these external stressors, you name it, right? The pesticides, the heavy metals, the phthalates, the plastics, the psychogenic stress, the low calorie, the lack of sleep, any one of those things, okay? What happens is the brain gets a signal. This is how the body's not messing up. So this is how you know. Your hypothalamus, think of it as like the epicenter of the brain, where all these signals are coming in from your periphery, right? The peripheral-based nervous system, from the environment. The proprioceptors, everything's taken in. all of your senses, okay? And it's saying, okay, we're under stress. What does the hypothalamus do? It says, okay, got it. We're going to release something. We're going to release something called corticotropin-releasing hormone. Then your pituitary gland gets the signal, I've got it. We're under stress. We're going to now ramp up the adrenals, okay? We're going to ramp up, not the adrenals, but specifically the adrenals produce something called adrenaline. So that's going to get us in that survival-based state. Like it's ready. You have tunnel vision. You're ready to go. You're either ready to run away or attack or whatever it might be. Okay, you're going to start to produce something called adrenocorticotropin-releasing adrenocorticotropin hormone. Not an easy one for me to say. Maybe for others, just not for me. All right, so now we've got the adrenal glands ramped up, right? They are ready to go. So we're producing adrenaline, and we're producing then something, the second stage, which is called a glucocorticoid, as in cortisol. Why does this matter? Well, I'm not going to go through it right now, but I want you to tune back to a previous podcast on how the adrenals affect the thyroid. I'll see if I can find that podcast for you. But again, at any time, you can go to stephencabral.com/podcasts, and you can type in anything you'd like in the search bar to search for previous episodes. Today is episode 978, okay? So I'll try to link up the adrenals there, but simply go to how the adrenals affect the thyroid. Everyone is talking about how to fix their low thyroid, but no one is talking about the adrenals. You have to look at them first. You have to look specifically at the adrenals, and then secondarily, you can look at the thyroid. Is it missing 2 of the minerals that it needs, or there's 4 specific toxins? Again, I have shows on those 2 minerals. I have shows on the 4 toxins that affect your thyroid. But if you're dealing with thyroid-based issues right now, I'll tell you right now, we help thousands of people with that. And you don't need to work with us, but what I would love you to do is listen to the podcasts on how to fix that so that no matter who you're working with, you can understand how to get well in the long run, right? In the long run. Okay, so besides the thyroid, here's what else happens. And again, no one's talking about this. We have what's called the hypothalamus. Remember, that's the epicenter of the brain, telling the pituitary gland, now here's what to do. The pituitary gland is essentially saying, here's what to do to the organs of the body. So it tells the adrenal glands to produce norepinephrine, and it tells it to produce cortisol. All right, that's just an overview. That's a summary of it. Well, it also does that for the thyroid. The hypothalamus pituitary thyroid axis, not the adrenal axis. There's a thyroid axis. Well, another one that almost no one talks about is called the hypothalamus pituitary ovarian axis, okay? This affects the gonads in both men and women. So it does affect the testes in men. Whereas focus today, and again, it can lower your testosterone, okay? Lowers your testosterone. It can increase your estrogen levels as well in men and cause hair loss, prostate swelling, etc. In women, we're focused on what does it do to estrogen and progesterone? What does it do to infertility? What does it do to the mood? What does it do to the skin? What does it do to libido, confidence, all of those things, right? Well, here's how it affects it. Under the same exact things that stress out the thyroid and stress out the adrenal, those same exact stressors affect the ovaries. So let me tell you exactly how. Okay, so when you get that same message from your hypothalamus telling your pituitary gland, we are under a stress, what is it telling it to do? It's telling it to downregulate. Okay? It's telling it to down-regulate the sex hormones because those are life-giving. Those carry on life. Its main purpose in women, which is fertility and carry on this human civilization, whatever you want to call it, humanity, okay? That is its main purpose of a female cycle. There are other things that it benefits women with. Bone strength, like many other things, don't get me wrong. But the main reason for that cycle in producing specific types of hormones are to be able to become pregnant, carry on life. That's it. So that is what we're looking at as not something that's essentially disputable, but here's exactly what it means. We also lower thyroid. We lower thyroid to be able to essentially downregulate our thermostat or our body's ability to deal with less calories, right? So if we downregulate thyroid, we can actually get by with less calories. That's a great thing if you're trying to survive. Well, here's exactly what it does. In women, and again, this goes for men as well, but in women, it downregulates what's called the follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, okay? FSH, follicle-stimulating hormone. Well, follicle-stimulating hormone naturally occurs in women during the first 14 days of their cycle. That's called the follicular phase of the cycle. Well, what's it meant to do? When you're not under great amount of stress, your body produces something called follicle-stimulating hormone, which causes one of the eggs to grow. So this is a good thing, and estrogen begins to increase. So estrogen is increasing over those 14 days. Its peak somewhere between days 8 and 11 in women, and then it starts to decrease. Here's why. Follicle-stimulating hormone is at its greatest for the first 2 weeks of a female cycle, causing that egg to grow and causing estrogen to rise. Okay, that's the perfect environment for the follicle or the follicular-based phase. Well, once estrogen levels have peaked, we now get a negative feedback loop. We get a feedback loop to the hypothalamus. This is exactly how the body works. Positive and negative feedback loops. This is how it works. So now we said, okay, we're peaked out in estrogen. Guess what happens? Well, now the hypothalamus tells the pituitary gland to tell the ovaries, we're going to down-regulate estrogen by increasing luteinizing hormone, or LH. Okay, you might see it on lab work. You might just hear LH, luteinizing hormone. Well, luteinizing hormone is giving you the signal, giving your body the signal that causes the egg to be released from the ovary, right? This is what we call ovulation, right? We're ovulating. That is ovulation. Okay, peak progesterone then occurs. Progesterone begins to ramp up right around that opposite phase, days 12 through 14 or so, but hits its peak around day 21 to day 23 of a female cycle. That's why if you're running the thyroid adrenal hormone test, you will run it somewhere between days 21 and day 23. Try to make it a weekday. Try to make it somewhere where your symptoms might be the highest. Okay, about 5 days or so before you might get your period or day 1 of menstruation. A lot of women we work with infertility, they don't know when their cycle is because they don't actually have a menstrual-based cycle. Well, for them, you take the lab on your day of highest symptoms. Highest symptoms would be lower mood or depression or acne breakout around the chin or bloating or water retention or any one of those things, okay? You'll take it at that time. If you don't have any of those symptoms and you just kind of are always what we call flat in our practice, then you can take the hormone test anytime that you would like. But so what happens though? Well, when you're under stress, the interesting thing is this. Because you're under stress, the hypothalamus tells the pituitary gland, listen, we're in more of a survival-based state. Let's start to downregulate. Not only are we downregulating progesterone because cortisol is high and progesterone is a precursor to cortisol, but we're downregulating follicle-stimulating hormone and we're downregulating luteinizing hormone. But to be honest, even if we were to downregulate follicle-stimulating hormone, it's all that a woman would need in order to lose her cycle because progesterone is signaled to increase when estrogen levels hit their peak during the follicle phase. And again, most people are not talking about that. This is not taught adequately in school, so your physician may not even know this, okay? So unless estrogen is even peaking out at its higher level, you're not going to get then the peak, the rebound of progesterone because you're not going to get that same feedback loop in the brain saying, hey, slow estrogen, which is exactly what happens during the luteal phase of a female cycle, which is the last 14 days. And it's approximate. We're just going by a 28-day cycle here. Some women it's 26, some women it's 30, right? If we start to go above 32 days or so, then we have a dysfunction in that female diurnal rhythm or that 14-day and 14-day rhythm. So we want to work on that as well. What we want to do is we want strong levels of estrogen, right, for the first 14 days. But then we want them to be weaker during the luteal phase when progesterone should be at its highest. And at the same time, we want them within balance. That's why I'm telling you, the majority of women have normal estrogen levels. The problem is they have lower progesterone levels, which means we see estrogen dominance even though they have normal estrogen. They're just having all the symptoms of high estrogen because they have low progesterone. And the reason this is happening is twofold. The hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis signaling for an increase in cortisol, and the precursor to cortisol is progesterone, right? So we're downregulating progesterone, and at the same time, we're downregulating the second half of what's called the hypothalamus pituitary ovarian cycle. This downregulates a female cycle, which means the cycle can become irregular. It can become, you might just miss a month, and this is why it happens all the time during stress. And this is why infertility is almost always fixed by getting the body out of that high stress environment, from the toxins, from the psychological stress, from the lack of B vitamins, from the lack of magnesium, from any of those things, to calm the body, allow it to know and get the signals that it's in a healthy based state. Remember, if you get the body healthy, remember, the healthy body can't be overweight, the healthy body can't be sick, the healthy body can't be missing its cycle, the healthy body can't be low testosterone, low estrogen, low progesterone, can't be any of those things. So what is our goal as integrative health practitioners? Our goal is simply to figure out where the imbalances are. Replace all of the things that the body might be deficient in, right? Remove all of the toxicities, and then if needed, right, because this is sometimes needed because we live in a very toxic world, it's to give it a push. To give it a push for those first 12 to 16 weeks. I talk about that in the 4 foods that help balance female hormones. Check that out. We do use nutritional supplements, of course, because the body's so depleted and it's pushed so hard in one direction that we need to give it a big push in the other direction. And then we begin to wean women off those nutritional supplements predominantly right around the 16-week mark, sometimes between 4 and 6 months, to allow for 1 or 2 or 3 new cycles to take hold. And then we assume that their body then is going to then get back into that normal rhythm. So again, remember, I did this today. I know it's a little bit more complex in terms of the biochemistry of the body, right? In terms of the pathophysiology of how women might feel a lot of these symptoms. But it's very important for you to know and understand is that your body's not messing up, no matter who tells you that it's not messing up. What happens is that there's some serious imbalances that could have been happening and transpiring over the past couple of years that have finally came to a head. Or maybe just put yourself in a higher stress situation. You're training for a triathlon, or you're overtraining, or you're under eating, or you went keto or really low carb for too long, and your body now is starting to shut down certain mechanisms to protect you. Again, it's not messing up, to protect you, and to also not allow you to potentially bring a child into an environment that's not suitable for healthy, for life-giving, for caring, for the best environment that it should be in. So I know I could talk more and more on this. I think that's enough for today. I don't want to confuse people. I want to give you that overview. Please let me know if this was helpful. You can connect with me on Instagram. Just go to my name, Stephen Cabral. You can go to cabralsupportgroup.com, ask follow-up questions there. That's our free private Facebook group. You're welcome to join, cabralsupportgroup.com. Happy to help in any way that I can. The best way that you can help all of us, honestly, is please try to pass this information on to any woman, man, any family, any couples that are dealing with these types of issues. I just want to make sure that we get this information out to people. I didn't make up how the body works, right? This is all of our information. Let's get it out to others. Thank you so much for tuning in. And also, if you're interested in learning how to get those hormones balanced, you can simply take the thyroid adrenal hormone test. That's the best one to start with. I will link up everything today at stephencabral.com/978. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, and talk with you tomorrow. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stephencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.